you speak, bro. Bro, you use all them big words that people them can't understand.
Well,
bro.
you know what? Hopefully it inspires them to buy a dictionary and a thesaurus, right? And they can expand their vocabulary. But I suppose even what you said, that caveats perfectly into what it is we was going to discuss today, right? And this has been a personal gripe of mine for a little while, just because I feel like words mean things.
Of course.
And in, I guess you could say, where thought leaders, we are public speakers to a certain degree now. As much as I refute a lot of those terms, that's just what it is, right?
You are, bro.
I guess so.
Influencer.
Fucking hell. Like, I think when you have a lot of debates and open discourses, you realise that a lot of what people say is not what they're saying, it's what they think or feel that they're saying. Now, naturally, we have a dictionary as our point of reference, as we just mentioned, right? Like, words mean things, and words derive from other words that have been compilated to mean things, right?
Yes.
And we have to be in mutual agreement upon what words mean to have a conversation, right? However, my gripe is that I find that most people's, it's not that their diction is limited, it's just that when they speak, they're not 100% cognizant of what it is they're saying. And then when you try to discuss the points they're saying, the rebuttal is, that's not what I meant. Well, then what did you mean, right? Because, like, we need to be in the mutual agreement as per what it is, what you're saying, right? And there are so many, I don't know, hallmarks of this just in society, right? Like we spoke about a stop sign. What does a stop sign mean? Stop. It means stop to me too.
Yeah.
But as its own entity, it doesn't mean anything until we ascribe meaning to it.
Until everyone
ascribes the same meaning to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And it's the same thing with words. So I just find it quite frustrating, bro. Like, what do you think about it?
I get where you're coming from, because I feel like in today's day and age, so many words mean the ulterior of what they actually mean, right? So someone will say, "Oh, that's sick," you know, but they actually mean it's good and full of life. You know what I'm saying? Or like think about growing up, how a lot of the words that we grew up hearing in the societies that we grew up with were actually the antithesis of what they actually meant, right? Yeah. So, to your point, I get it. There's a lot of confusion. But I think we've got to stem it down and root it down to the fact that the Bible says, and I don't mean to go off on a spiritual channel, but it says there's life and death in the power of the tongue. So just the way you speak can bring life to something or can kill something. Yeah. So when you start thinking about things from that way and from that lens, you automatically start thinking properly about what it is that's coming out your mouth. But I do agree with you that so many of the things that are discussed now are misconstrued a lot, because people, even at the point where they're being literal, the person on the receiving end doesn't take it in the same way. Yeah, it's being conflated with other ideas, right? And I think society is largely to blame. 100%. And I think, look, I'm not going to sit here and act like we know 100% of the dictionary definitions based on everything that we say. However, there are certain pertinent phraseologies and terms that we ought to know the actual meaning of, or at least the 90%, right? What's some other? Vulnerability. Okay. Because like we talk from the male gaze, we talk about, and one of the biggest pillars of mentality is mental health. And the term vulnerability is thrown around so much within the mental health sphere. And you know, I love this stuff. Like, I love getting into all of that and like understanding what things mean, etc., etc. And it's something that is very loosely kind of placed. And vulnerability means to be emotionally or physically at harm, right? Or in harm's way. Now, that might come as a byproduct of being open and honest, but is vulnerability the goal there? Do you understand what I mean? Because like, that's a big one with itself. Yeah, like, because from my gaze, like, I'm open and honest with you, you're open and honest with me. But that's not us being vulnerable. That's just us being open and honest. Because I don't feel like you can take what I've said and weaponize it against me. But to the same extent, I feel like where the word vulnerability is used is because traditionally, if you look at most relational interactions, right? Traditionally, when something of openness is shared amongst two peers, that thing, there is always the possibility of harm, and oftentimes there was, right? People would use something that has been shared with them as a weapon against them. I think in your own mindset, because of the strength that you hold, you're like, yeah, but you can't do nothing to me, right? So you separate yourself from the openness that you're putting on the table, because you're like, okay, cool. The fact I'm being open to you, fine, that's on you. I'm still going to carry on anyway. But it takes a very special character to be able to say, okay, well, I'm going to be open and not care whether or not you can pick that up as a weapon or not, because I'm going to live my life any in which way, and I'm going in my own direction.
But then do you think that does the term a disservice in saying it and really speaking about it from a lens that is not true to its etymological?
I don't think it does it a disservice, but I think it's diluted in meaning hugely. If we're saying the same thing, I guess maybe, but I think it's diluted hugely in meaning in that it's a word that's so commonly thrown around now. Oh, I want a vulnerable man, or I want him to be vulnerable to me. But really, by you saying that, when you talk about etymology, by you saying that, you're saying, I want to be able to harm him if I need to.
You want someone who's weak, right? Because we can only harm what is weaker than us, right?
Truth.
Exactly. So again, it's almost like I always like to go back to like children, right? Like, you think about a child. If a child says some fuckeries to you, because children, they
speak like, what they want to speak. They speak what they want to speak, and it's truth to them. Yeah, because that's what they've been exposed. That's all they know.
Exactly. Oftentimes, as adults, we don't take offense to that. Why? Because a child to us is vulnerable. Because we can harm it either emotionally, physically, etc., right? So, again, the whole framework comes from a frame of weakness, and I would actually say that the reason why those phraseologies and words are so foregrounded in society, because society wants to support the weakness of the cohort, right? And you see how words are almost like words are spells at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And if you can get people using certain phraseologies long enough and over a perpetual enough amount of time, it becomes reality.
Of course.
Do you understand? So you got to see that like I always talk about the totalitarian symptom, right? How like, and that's why I'm such a stickler for words, right? Like, even when I speak to people, I'm like, what do you mean when you said that? Because I know that that's not what you're trying to articulate to me. However, how much does that detract away from the point we're actually talking about? So you've got to go around the house.
Let me throw another word out there then, that I feel like is often also misconstrued, and that's meekness, right? So if we're talking about vulnerability and somebody who's meek-natured, is that person weak?
What is the definition of meek?
Okay, so meekness is, I don't know the dictionary. I feel like I need to search up the dictionary definition. But my understanding, let's put it that way. My understanding of meekness is somebody who approaches life from a gentle cause, right? They don't become aggressive in their nature. Everything has a gentle approach to it, and that's meekness. They often talk about lambs being meek like a lamb, right? So just pure in intention, pure in spirit, pure in approach. It's meekness. But on the flip side of that, I use that word. I'll throw that word out there because oftentimes when somebody's meek-natured, they're called a simp.
Yeah, we associate with weakness. Yeah.
So again, another thing, being gentle doesn't make you weak.
Of course it doesn't.
Being gentle just means you're coming at something from a more non-aggressive approach. Some of them, the strongest people in life are very, very meek-natured.
Very mild-mannered.
Yeah, very mild-mannered, because they know the strength that they carry. Right? So I think, or to your point, to your beginning point, there are a lot of words that are thrown out there. So vulnerability and meekness is some. But you said dictionary, right? Earlier on, you said get yourself a dictionary and a thesaurus. I would argue not, because every year there's so many words thrown into that dictionary, bro. There's so many new words thrown into the dictionary.
No, but it's good though, man. I always say I think your because remember, like, look, I think there's a hierarchy of communication, right? And I think communication, the lowest form of communication is verbal, because there's so much other communicational tools that we pick up on when we're communicating.
That's true,
right? Body language being one of the biggest ones. So I'll say if that's the lowest form of communication, you ought to want to constantly be up leveling in that area, because in that realm of communication, you're ultimately going to be limited by your diction, right?
True.
And even it might not be in speaking, because you understand that a lot of people use very elaborate words, and first you don't know what they're saying, and secondly they do it as a facade to act as if they're more intelligent than they actually are.
True.
However, if someone's speaking to you and you don't understand the 90% of what they're saying, and again, granted that English is your first language, and you're a fully grown adult, you probably, and it's not like a niche like he's talking about, a doctrine or a specific kind of niche topic that is like not general, it's just a general conversation, you should want to question that. Like, I would walk away from that conversation feeling like, fuck, I feel exposed. Like, I feel like no, but you know what I'm saying.
I don't know if exposed is how I feel in those circumstances, but
but how often do you find yourself in those circumstances?
Not many times, to be honest. Not many times, because there's not many people whose vocabulary I find to be well above mine.
Exactly.
And when I do encounter those people, I want to consume more of what they're saying, so I can go and find out, so I can be the guy that is using that vocab. Yeah. Funny story, I used to sleep with a dictionary under my pillow because I thought my mind would absorb the words. I remember reading one story when I was a kid, and this kid had a dictionary and he put it under his pillow and his mind just absorbed all the words.
That's crazy.
But do you know what it did though? It meant that the dictionary was always there. So at night time when I couldn't sleep, I could just flick through and I'll pick words. And then I used to do word of the day, so I'll pick a word and use that word all the way throughout the day. And that used to be my thing. So from a diction perspective, I might not always use some of the words that I have at my disposal because I know the people I'm speaking to can't fathom what's coming out of my mouth, but it's still there. So when somebody else is speaking to me, like when you and I speak a lot, some of the words that are thrown about, like I know most people from the outside listening to the way we speak wouldn't be able to like actually understand. There's no understanding of the words that we use. And it's funny because I was talking to somebody else the other day and they were like, oh, that guy you do the podcast with, oh, the words he uses.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, I get it. We need to get better. Taking it a little step back though, Kor, you said something earlier about sometimes the things that people say, it's often what they feel, what they think. But even just those two things, there's a disparity between them. Like, because someone would tell you, listen, I feel like this is the way it is. It's not what he feels, it's actually what he thinks. So people aren't actually aware of what it is that they're feeling or what it is that they're thinking and what the differences are between the two of them.
Yeah, because how do you conceptualize a feeling? Like, it's like, love, right? Like, how love feels to you, give it. I'm not asking you to genuinely do this in real time, but I'm just saying, think about how you would illustrate the feeling of love in words, and then think about how your missus would do it, and think about how T would do it, and think about how I would do it. Like, it's so shapeless and formless that it's so difficult. However, that's why we need some sort of scribe that we can reference back when we're speaking about things.
You know what I mean? Yeah, no, I
because it's difficult.
I understand that. But then that scribe is oftentimes not what is meant, right? So someone would say, I love him because I think he does all these things for me. But then, is that the scribe? Is that what you think
is love?
Why do you hate that person? Because he makes me feel this way. But what is the feeling? The feelings that I get. I have all these things going through my head and I feel less. But then that's not a feeling then, is it? It's your thought process. There's a difference. And I guess what I'm trying to say is people need to get to a point where they actually take a step back and actually understand the difference between feeling
and a thought.
Feeling is emotive. A thought is something that is running through your head.
It's perpetual. It happens.
This is it. So that's why it's important to come back to that. Or even to touch on that point.
And even look, we're sitting there, we're speaking in English, right? And English is a very limited language. And you're bilingual. I'm relatively bilingual. I like to think I'm bilingual.
You're working towards it.
Yeah, I'm working on it. However, when you learn a new language or you know another language, you realize how limiting the English diction is, because there are so many words that speak to, even like love. Like Nadia said it at Noches. How like in Arabic, there's so many different iterations of the word love. So they will have like so many different words, like the love for your pet, the love for your friend, the love for your spouse. And in that, they are more kind of olive branches to go down, right? But when we're speaking in English diction, it's even more difficult, especially if English is a second language for you.
To understand what is exactly meant.
Understand exactly what is meant, and to be able to articulate exactly what is meant, right? So I totally get what you're saying, and it's so layered. It's so layered, right? Because again, even the idea of feelings, your thoughts, the difference between the two. Do you ever get there? Like, do you ever get a full grasp and full understanding of those things? It's like something that you're constantly...
I think it's something that you have to train. So it's one of the tools that I use in coaching, is really trying to get people to separate what's going on in their head to what's going on in their heart, right? And it's something you have to train and keep consistently training, because only then do you realize that some of your thoughts actually are not influenced by your feelings, but your feelings are influenced by your thoughts, right? Because you can only feel something that you think about a lot, but you can't think about something that you feel, because it just happens. It's the body's natural response mechanism. I can sit there and make myself feel something because I keep thinking about it, but if I feel something, it happens so suddenly that I can only think about it afterwards. I can't feel. Does that make sense?
I totally get what you're saying.
So we have to separate the two. And actually get people to a point where they're understanding, okay, cool, this is what I'm feeling. And so it could be just a culmination of lots of different stimuluses that's got me thinking this. And this is what I'm feeling. This is actually deep rooted within me. It's deep down. In which case, why am I feeling this? Like, where's it coming from? Right? Is it something that is learnt? Is it something that is triggered because of endorphins? Is it hormonal? Is it because I'm in a certain environment? Where is this feeling? And then even in that, you can trace it back. Where did that start? What has caused me to be in this state where I fear, or I love, or I'm angry at, or I'm hurt, or I'm happy because of where has that triggered from? Is it a memory? Is it from childhood? Is it, you know what I mean? So feelings and thought are very distinct within themselves, but very different from each other.
And it's funny because in doing that exercise, right, you realize why you say a lot of the things you say. Because I would say speech is the image of mind, and the image of your mind is a culmination of thoughts that are perpetually playing, right? Because what is a belief? A belief is just a perpetual thought indulged in over enough time. So your feelings, your thoughts, your words, they're all interconnected. And when you understand that, by paying attention to what you say on a very frequent basis, will give you a roadmap as to where and how you're feeling about things, right? And so I guess there's a duality there, right? I've just noticed this in real time in having this conversation, is that really then speaking about things is kind of very limiting, and isn't it, right? Because you only have so much scope of words, and that's an even smaller scope of words that you understand and actually have true understanding of, and that can actually replicate and form into consistent sentence. And your feelings are so much more than that, right?
Of course they are.
Yeah.
Of course they are. And if you listen, or if you observe really powerful, really important people and how they interact, you'll notice that their word usage is very, very, not limited, but very small. They don't waste their words. They say what they mean, and they mean what they say, and then that's it. Anything else other than that is a waste of a word, or a word that can be taken out of context.
I love that. Sorry, bruv. Yeah, we're cooking right now, bruv. Like, you just said something very, very interesting, and you said misconstrued, right?
Yes.
Like, it can be taken out of context.
Yeah.
And I totally ascribe to that thought frame. I feel like it's funny because, and here's the polarity. Most people don't know what they're saying, but they say too much.
Yes.
They're overcompensating with their lack of consistency and understanding with more words. So they end up saying more or speaking more but saying less. And that is like common throughout all of society, right? And that's just very interesting, because when you really do know what it is you're saying,
you don't need to say
it can be very concise, right?
Succinct, because you mean exactly what it is, and that's it.
How does the body language also play into that? Because if we're going to talk about that being the lion's share of communication, then I suppose we need to not only be cognizant of what it is we're saying, but also how it is we're carrying ourselves and what our body, like you said, even in the car on the way here, we're listening to the body. Is it the body keeps score?
The body keeps score. Yeah.
Yeah, like the body is keeping score in real time, right? Like, have you ever said something to someone and just like seeing their body like just freeze up and tense up? They just feel uncomfortable. But we pick up on those things, right? And I think that's another form of communication that people are really not very privy to. So how do you become aware of what's happening in you viscerally when you're actually communicating with people?
I think as somebody who, I never used to enjoy speaking publicly. I never used to enjoy debates. I never used to enjoy being in the midst of situations where it felt like people were looking at me, right? I've learned to slow down. And I think that allows me to be able to be cognizant of how my body is, where I'm sitting in terms of emotion, and what comes out my mouth. So I know for a fact that a lot of people are very visual, body language, right? There's a lot of people are very visual. So if I'm holding myself a certain way and it's out of context with what's coming out my mouth, people will get what I'm saying mistaken, or people will take what I'm saying mistakenly and mean something else, right? So I have to, or people, I guess the people that listen have to be a little bit more conscious of, okay, cool, this is the environment I'm in, this is the message I'm trying to communicate, and so with that I have to remain consistent in my whole being. I can't be big and burly and trying to be looking like I'm the man and I'm aggressive, but I'm trying to console and comfort someone.
100%.
You know what I mean? You've got to be down to people's level a little bit in order to understand, to relate and deliver what you're trying to deliver through verbiage and through action.
That's a great point, and I have a real life example of that. Like we said in the last episode, I was helping my missus move a couple of days ago, and a woman came and knocked on the door, right? And this was right after like the security had knocked and told us to like move some stuff from outside. And I'm like in the shower, like I'm coming out, and I'm just like, I'm basically like, I'm a bit pissed off by this guy, what he's come to the door and said, like, I'm like, look bro, I'm like, give me a minute. So the doorbell's rung again, so I'm like,
you're ready
like,
to
what
fight?
the fuck, like, I'm thinking it's the same guy. So I've gone to the door now, and I've opened the door, aggressive, like you can tell I'm thinking like, what the fuck, like I'm ready to bad something up in it. So I pulled the door open, and it's like this woman, like she's so like I said, meek, right? She's very meek, very mild mannered, and she's like, oh, we just moved in here, do you have like a I think she's asking for a corkscrew opener or something, something like to open champagne with or something like that. And like my missus is like, I've gone back to the room after like having this discourse with this woman, right? It's very short, and she's like, every time you speak to a woman, like your whole aura, your whole energy just changes, right? And I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, and we had a conversation at length about it, but it's exactly because of the point you're prefacing, because I'm pissed off, and I know that I can sometimes be perceived in an aggressive way. And bear in mind, I'm like leaning around the door, I've like got my top off, I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you get me? I'm trying to like pad it down a bit. So I'm like, yeah, but it makes sense because she's come, and the way I've opened the door, you can already see she's on the back foot. She's like, like shit, like this guy's like probably thinking, why is like this woman ringing the door at this time or whatnot? And it's just changed, but that is a big part of communication, and it's something that I feel like a lot of people are not very privy to.
It can't be. Imagine if you'd said to her no, but genuinely you don't have a corkscrew.
Well, I didn't. I did tell her no, but I told her
in an answer. Imagine you come to the door and just deliver the.
What you want?
Yeah. And then she walks away. What's she gonna think?
Yeah, she's gonna think this guy's a madman.
You see what I'm saying? But you've killed her endeavour a little bit there. Not because she came for a tour, but you've killed her endeavour, and that there were two purposes served, right? One was to come and get the corkscrew. The other one was to make friends with the neighbours or the new neighbours, right? Yeah, so now, absolutely. if you're approaching that situation from an aggressive stance, even though that's not what you wanted to do, you've killed her endeavour a bit. Yeah. She's going to go away feeling less of herself than what she actually came there for. And so, like I said, body language is very, very important. It's something that I make a thing to correct every time I catch myself in a situation.
Likewise. Because my default is to go into
South London,
Yeah. No, bro, I'll be real, bro. Because, like, you see what is, like, even, like, we spoke about, like, the way you talk, the way you carry yourself, the way you smell, all of the visual and
cues,
the other emotive cues in communication. And I understand that growing up the way I grew up, a lot of what I do is hinged upon making sure that you know what time it is, isn't it?
Survival though, isn't it?
Do you understand? Not exactly, but I understand where it comes from. And it's not something I've dropped or thinking as a vice in any regard. I just understand when to sheath that and deploy that and when to put it away. Because that can be your just default mechanism, right? It could just be your way of being where you're just like super unapproachable, right? And then you couple that with other things that make you intimidating, like being intelligent, like, you know, earning a good amount of money, like all of these other things that act as a barrier to entry for people. Now, naturally, man's people at the end of the day. Like, however, I like for there to be somewhat of a barrier to entry, if you will, that acts as a discerning tool, right? However, it depends on the social environment I'm in.
Okay.
Because that's not what I want all the time, right? Okay. Like when I'm walking around the community here, I want the labourers to feel comfortable. Like I know from top management to the labourers. I know pretty much everyone. Like, and I speak with everyone. But that's a demeanour that is suitable for this current environment. However, if I'm in a different environment, it might be different, right? If I'm in a dangerous environment, I need to put on a certain veneer that supports that environment, right?
I hear that.
Do you get what I'm saying?
I hear that. I think my proclivity is a little bit different in that my approach is and the way I live my life from a stance of leadership. So if leadership is to be able to serve people to a point where they can understand to come where I'm going, then I can't look at the way I am, or I can't approach the way I live life from a point of, okay, well, I have to pick and choose. I live my life at a level where people can observe and be like, okay, well, I'm inspired. Whether I be in Brixton or in the Bronx or in DIFC, you know what I mean? I live my life in a way where people can feel inspired. Now, the issue comes is if you want to now step to me in a different manner, then you actually realize that I'm multifaceted.
Man said, then you realize I'm multifaceted.
I'm multifaceted.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But up until then, you're going to view me as, okay, cool, yeah, he dresses well, he speaks well, he smells good, he has good verbiage, he knows how to talk to lots of different types of people. He's inspiring. Cool. Step to me different.
Okay. See,
do you feel
I'm following? Yeah.
So I'm all people to all. I'm everything to all men.
All things to all people. Yeah. I get that. I think I ascribe to that thought frame. The only difference from my perspective is that sometimes I feel like prevention is better than cure.
I hear that.
And even like we said, communication, we can get super esoteric here, right? And I would summate that with aura. Your aura. And I've been told this many times, my aura precedes me, but I can make it precede me, right? Like I said, if I'm chilled, I'm the nicest guy, right? Like, likewise with yourself. However, I know that when I'm going into certain environments, I need to turn my aura up a notch.
I hear that.
Because I'm not trying to be in a situation where you think it's not what it is, and then I have to show you what time it is.
I hear that.
Because that's... Now everyone's in issues now, and for me it's like I just like to live a simple life, right? So my thing is in certain environments, my aura is very, very different. Like I almost imagine if we was like recording this in South, I'm from Bricky, like, you know what I mean. So when you say Bricky, it's like a warm feeling in my heart, right? But like we're recording this in Bricky, right? My whole demeanor is going to be completely different. We're in Dubai, we're chilling right now.
Okay.
Do you understand? So like for me, I like I said, I ascribe to everything you're saying. That's the small difference I deploy with that. And it's very nuanced. And however, you can pick up on that. You can pick up on that very, very quickly. Especially if you're pre man thinking that it's that. Bro, I can tell man stories, innit? You get me? Like, how I kind of grew up here. I was in the hood, but I wasn't of the hood, innit? So I wasn't attached to any fractions. I wasn't attached to any man. A couple of my dogs are from all over the place, innit? I used to roll with my rollie. Like, by myself.
Yeah.
That I'm one.
I still do.
Yeah, but what I'm saying to you is it's the aura though, isn't it? Because it's almost like you might see a man doing that here, and you know he's way too comfortable to not be from here. Mm-hmm. However, I ain't got a measure of this guy yet. I don't know who this guy, but I've seen him around a couple of times. I know he's local, and I've seen him with a couple of the guys from around here. However, that's gonna already instill enough doubt in your mind to stop you from trying to accelerate it.
I see that.
Do you get what I'm saying?
I think, yeah, and I totally understand what you're saying. I think for me it's different because the audiences that I hold are audiences that are naturally of my level or above. Okay. I don't generally walk into rooms with people that I see as, or that I would perceive as not conducive to helping me grow.
I understand. Yeah, you're not going to be in certain places.
So my audiences most times naturally are audiences that I can feel comfortable in. The people I carry around, the people I step into rooms with or have around me are people that are either going to enhance me or going to leverage me in a different direction, or they're going to be enhanced by me. Yeah. Right? It's rare that you'll find me and even in Brixton, right? Yeah. I will comfortably walk around Brixton. And I did last summer. I walked around Bristol, no issues, because it's a case of, okay, cool, I carry myself in a way where if you just look at me, you know that, okay, cool, this guy he's not that guy in it. You know what I mean? But I don't turn nothing up or down. I am who I am. But like I said, come and find out. That's my approach. Because naturally, I also want to allow myself to have enough space for people to find me approachable, right? Because somebody might need my help. Just because I've turned it up a little bit, they feel like,
see, I'm not in that. So I want my help to be, and it's funny because like we're both basically said the same thing. We're just going about it from two different spots, which is what quite consistent with a lot of the conversations we have. For me, I don't like to be troubled, man. Like, leave me alone.
You're a quiet person by nature anyway.
Leave me alone, bro.
You live in your...
Yeah. That's my thing, innit? Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. It's almost like I'm having to learn to be somewhat of a social butterfly.
You have to be, though, now, because you're an influencer, bro. You're an influencer, bro.
But you get it, though, innit? Like, it's like I'm having to learn that, right? Because my peace... I hold that very dear to me.
Yeah, but the point of servitude is that you have to sometimes sacrifice your own peace in order to help other people.
That's what we're in.
And what we're doing now is helping other people. So sacrificing the peace has to be like, again, point of servitude, sacrificing your peace a little bit, not fully because you still need to be at peace, but opening the doors a little bit to allow people to have a little bit more access to you.
I even think that comes somewhat vicariously, right? Because like we speak at length about like mentality, perfect, all of our initiatives that we're involved in, right? And like the overarching goal is the same. Like my whole thing is like, how do we get there that creates the least friction for us personally? For you personally, for me personally also, right? Because naturally there's so many different ways of going about things. And the way I think about servitude, I live my life for servitude. However, I also like to have my, autonomy. I don't want my autonomy or my sovereignty to be encroached upon. So the way I kind of position that idea is that I want it to be in such a way that it's vicariously through the way I am, as opposed to me having to necessarily help you, right? Not that doesn't help you, but it's a help in a different sort of capacity, right? It's like setting the right example. It's like doing the right thing so that, and understanding that people will follow you. However, I don't want it to be in such a way where it ever gets to a point where man's walking down JBR and people are like screaming my name.
Too late.
No, that's it. Too late. Get me? Yeah, I wouldn't go into hibernation, bro.
You say that, but people are starting to recognize you now, bro.
Yeah.
People are starting to know who you are, and
just help me up, like, show, get me, that's it, bro.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's
it's a price to pay, innit?
It's a price we pay for wanting to help people. Yeah. We both know none of this was about fame, and none of it is about being influencers. But we want to be influential in the nature of the things that we speak about, and how we help people. So I get where you're coming from.
Influencers, influential.
There you go. I get that. That was an interesting one, though.
Yeah.
That was a very interesting one. Listen, coming back to point, get yourself a word of the day app, a dictionary, a thesaurus, and just pay a bit more attention to how you carry yourself, body language.
You got Google. Like, you know what I do, yeah? And hopefully this is a takeaway for those that are listening. If ever I'm listening to something and I hear a word, I immediately, as long as I'm not doing anything, I immediately stop it and just Google it. What does it mean?
Yeah.
Cool. Boom. Another thing added. Yeah. And then just try to use it at the nearest point of convenience.
And consistently.
Yeah.
Because that's how it sticks. You can use it once,
but then it's gonna go away. Yeah.
Consistently.
Yeah. And just add it to your repertoire. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
You should do a word of the day, bro. We should do a mentality word of the day. On IG.
Yeah, we spoke about it
drop a word of the day and a phrase of the day.
Yeah.
On IG. We should do that.
Yeah. Well, I guess the word of the day, I suppose we started off on the front of vulnerability. So
let's
look into it.
Yeah.
Google it, and just do your due diligence. Yeah.
Before we switch off, there was a conversation we were having earlier about where women play a role in this, right? And how women often misconstrue what we say as men. Can we touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, look, I can't speak on. It's again, like we always say, it's difficult to speak on the behalf of women. We can only hazard a guess because they are our better halves, I don't like to claim.
Better.
So, I think women are just far more feeling, right? And I think in them being more feeling and man being more of the mind, that's what I kind of like to look at. I like to look at man as mind and I look at woman as the body.
Okay.
I think that's what creates the large disparity between communication. And I think if we're going to communicate with one another, one of the greatest kind of understandings we can have is reverse engineering that process.
Okay.
Understanding that what he's saying oftentimes could be coming from up here. Not all the time, but it can be coming up here because it's going to be logical, rational, pragmatic.
Yeah.
And what she's saying oftentimes is going to be coming from here.
Yeah.
And I think if you understand that, that already bridges the 80% of the difference in the male and female communication.
So basically when she's telling you that she's okay.
Yeah, maybe she's not okay. Or maybe she's okay. Or maybe she's great.
Like, that doesn't help anyone.
No, but what I'm saying is we understand that it's probably hinged in some sort of emotion.
Should we in relationships have better tracks of communication?
Yes. I think, like I said, I think sitting down and having communication like this suits more of the male narrative. And I think the idea of having, because again, and I'm going to add context to this type of discourse, it's very like you go, I go, there's not very much cutting or interjecting. It's very make your point, sink your point, then I'll add to your point or argue against your point, etc.
Amicable discourse.
Yeah, but this is my point, right? So with women, oftentimes when they communicate, it can be all over the place. They're like multi-tracking, their mind's going everywhere, they're constantly speaking over one another, but that is because it's emotive. So as soon as they feel the emotion based on what's being said, there's a reaction, right? It's like the way if I feel anxious, my body's going to feel tense. And that is the response to the anxiety I'm experiencing from the external environment.
I want to take this conversation somewhere, but I feel like we don't have.
Let's do it, bro. Let's do it.
That has to be another pod.
No, but
because I want to talk about the emotion of women.
Give us a teaser, though, bro.
Okay.
Give us a teaser.
I want to touch on the emotion of women, and the fact that because they're emotive natured, they often attract other women of the same emotion, and so hurt people, right? Yeah. And so you often find that most women gravitate towards other women that are in the same situation as them. Hurt people, and healed people, heal people. Yeah. Right? So, I want to touch on how women find their friend circles.
Fucking hell. Yeah, I don't. I
feel like
we need to shout someone to come on that one, man.
So there's plenty of women we can reach out to.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'd love to talk on that.
I'd love to talk on that.
Like, how do you pick your friends, as a man, and from a female lens as well?
Yeah.
That would be so sick.
The next one, I'm sure.
Let's do it.
Yeah?
Let's do it.
Definitely, man.
Yeah. But as always, bro, always sick.
The next one, man.
Always dope.